Welcome back to the channel. Today I am very excited to hop on here and talk about what I obviously have said many times was one of my most anticipated movies of 2024, and that is the long-awaited sequel to Pixar's Inside Out, Inside Out 2, starring Amy Poehler, Maya Hawke, Kensington Tallman, Lisa Lapira, Tony Hale, Lewis Black, Phyllis Smith, Iowa Debris, and many more. And this follows the story of Riley, who's now 13, picking up a couple years from where we left off in the first Inside Out film, as she goes to this hockey camp with some of her best friends and tries to navigate her longing to be on the high school team and fit in with the other girls who are at this camp, and trying to balance her old friendships with her new friendships, and also anxiety, who was introduced into her life for the very first time, played by Maya Hawke in this film. And as I've said, this film, at least the original one, I think is one of the top 5 greatest Pixar movies ever made, one of the greatest animated films ever made, and what I would personally put in my own personal top 100 films ever made. If you saw my Pixar ranked video, I will link it here so you can check that out. And this, when I saw the original Inside Out, this wasn't really in a period of my life when I was in a movie. It was kind of stupid. I didn't think I liked them at all, really. So considering how much that movie touched me emotionally when I saw it, I even knew it was a phenomenal film back then, and I've revisited it a couple times since, and it still holds up and will stand the test of time. I think is one of the best efforts that Pete Docter and the studio Pixar will ever put out. So the anticipation for this movie for me was insanely high, considering it was almost a decade since we got the last film, and that makes me feel quite old, to be honest. And I was all in for it. I really thought to myself, this is going to be the next Pixar masterpiece. Is it quite that? No, I would not go that far. And to be honest, I am a little disappointed, and I will get into that. But just because my expectations were set so high, it didn't really deliver to the level I wanted to. Similarly to Furiosa, it's kind of in the same boat, and I don't know if that gives away what my rating for this film is if you saw my Furiosa review. But I really do think that this is one of the strongest Pixar sequels they've done in a while. I think at least since Incredibles 2, and that's maybe just for me personally, but this film is still so enjoyable, so thought-provoking, and has a lot of maturity to it that doesn't feel like they phoned it in at all. This is not another Lightyear situation where they're kind of cashing in on the property. This is not that at all. It really does expand the story of Inside Out in a meaningful and fleshed out way. Because I even said if there was any Pixar movie that deserved a sequel, I think it should have been Inside Out, and that is what we got, thankfully. So much to bounce off of the last film, of course, ending with the puberty button, which I thought was such a great gag within itself, but also set up so much room for them to explore more emotions and so many different things they could tap into, and they very much do that here. And of course, you got the returning cast. Amy Poehler as Joy, always amazing. I think one of the definitive Pixar roles, when you think of like an actor and a character, I think Amy Poehler is right there with Joy, and just amazing in this as well. Phyllis Smith, of course, is Sadness, always delivering. You can't help but love that character. Lewis Black, I think, as Anger, really gets an upgraded role in this film, and his character has some moments that were quite surprising to me that I really didn't expect, but were very well appreciated. Now, of course, Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling ended up not reprising their roles as Fear and Disgust, respectively. And of course, we got Tony Hale and Lisa Lapira, I believe. And they're really good in the roles. I feel like it just picks up where it left off. And you can tell it's not Bill Hader at the very least, but I think Lisa Lapira is really great as Disgust. And I really love their dynamic, of course, as always this time around. You get more of them in this film, especially Anger, I would say, and Disgust. But really, it's the new emotions here. They want to talk about Envy, played by Iowa Debris, who, of course, is, coming hot off the bear. Really glad to see her getting some Pixar work here. Let's go. Adele Exarchopoulos, I believe is how you pronounce her name, is Ennui. Very, very laissez-faire French emotion. And it's kind of funny how they play into the fact that she is French, and I really love the dynamic there and what they do there. Embarrassment, played by Paul Walter Hauser, if not even briefly, is a really great addition to this cast. But you're really going to be talking about Maya Hawke's anxiety here, because this is really her movie. And just the way, yet again, what I love about the first film is how they externalize these very internal ideas that are always firing off in the inner workings of our minds. They do that so well in the way they capture anxiety in this film. And, I guess I wouldn't say that anxiety is a so-called villain or whatever, but there's certainly more of a antagonistic presence to her. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler to say, as opposed to the first film where no one was really the antagonist at all, and it was very much ruled by the emotions in the story. But I really do think what they do with her here is quite phenomenal. I think Maya Hawke is really the standout of this film, and its eventual conclusion, which it leads to with anxiety, is something that really, of course, I should have known, but it definitely caught me off guard. And the emotions hit in the way I was expecting them to at the bare minimum. And I think the finale of this film is really, really powerful. Almost brought tears to my eyes. Of course, not like the first, though, and we'll get into that, because this isn't as emotional as the first film, and it is nowhere near as brilliant. There's still, yet again, a lot of great utilizations of these ideas, and some really great characters. Of course, I have to mention, when you're watching the movie, keep an eye out for Bloofy and Pouchy. Some of the funniest gags in all of Pixar are in this movie, and I think a lot of it has to do with those characters in particular. And just the way they play with different animation styles, too, I think is really, really great. Just like in the first film, I think they kind of expand on that here. But there's so much of this movie that feels like the same, the story beats and whatnot. And I feel like it does not feel anywhere near as fresh as the original film is. And it isn't to that, very meticulous level that almost feels like it was written by an extremely astute doctorate psychologist. Like, it isn't anything like that at all in this film. I mean, as I said, a lot of great ideas, but it isn't as specific or brilliantly pointed as the first film. And you'll definitely feel that a bit. But even so, I think I do need to see this again, because I was shocked, because I saw this in IMAX, and I didn't think that a lot of people would bring their kids to an IMAX screening, considering how expensive it is. But my goodness, there were kids all throughout the theater, specifically like this 3 or 4-year-old who kept talking during the whole movie and kept, blabbing out stuff at some of the most profound and poignant moments of the film. So I really have to see it again where there's no kids. Look, I love kids, but they're annoying, let's be honest. Especially when you're trying to go to the movie theater. But one thing I will say, when it comes to that, I am really glad to see how well this is done at the box office. This has already gone past its $200 million budget opening weekend. We haven't seen a smash like that in a long time, probably since Barbenheimer. So this is really going to be a big deal, and I think is going to be an indicator of what we are going to get for the rest of the summer here. And I'm really excited to see where this goes, but I'm really glad that this film has been a success like it was, because Pixar really needed this, especially after the pandemic and the lackluster films that they've been putting out recently, like Elemental. So I am really, really happy in that regard, and I really think that this isn't a cash grab. But does it worry me what emphasis they're going to put on sequels after this? Yeah, a little bit. And I know we're already getting Toy Story 5 in a couple years, that's fine, but I really don't know if they're going to start shifting towards the older IPs, if we're going to get a sequel to Monsters, Inc., if we're going to get another sequel to Incredibles 2. I wouldn't say it's not completely unwelcome by any means, but it does worry me a little bit if they're just going to cash in on IPs. But I think if Pixar does all their sequels to their best franchises like they did with this one, in a way that adults can appreciate the maturity of the themes, the humor, what have you, all the cultural references, and also a way that kids can be entertained and enjoy it, and that way can all be moved together. I really think that this is the pure example of that, even if it doesn't feel as fresh as the first film. But that is quite a high bar to surpass, if you ask me. And I'm going to give Inside Out 2, as of now, an 8 out of 10. This could go slightly up. I don't know. I really do think that this is probably near the top of the bottom half of Pixar, which still is, not really saying anything bad at all, because obviously the score is still pretty high, but considering the expectations I had for it, I was a little let down, but still, I think that this is definitely a very, very solid continuation to the story, and really taps into a lot of stuff that I definitely experienced growing up in this era, coming into my teenage years. Definitely very relatable in that sense, and I think anybody who has anxiety, like me personally, can really relate to the story and the themes of this film. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about Inside Out 2 in the comments below. Is this one of Pixar's best sequels? Do you think it's not one of their best? Do you think it is one of their best films in general? Let me know down below. And of course, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want to hear me talk about more movies like this, and ones that will be coming out very soon that I cannot wait to get into. But of course, until the next video, I will talk to you later, and please have yourselves a very good week moving forward. Okay, talk to you soon.